Alright, so let's take a look at this match between Eddie Cummings versus Chris Ulbricht, or Ulbricht. I'm not really sure how to pronounce his last name. So I'm going to take a look at one part of this match, in particular an entry from butterfly guard into the saddle position. And I also wanted to cover a couple of additional details that I may not have covered in my previous video of how Eddie gets into the saddle position. So let's go ahead and get started here. So as you can see here, Eddie's basically using a 2-on-1 grip here. And this is very popular from Marcelo Garcia. And you can see here that Eddie has a strong grip behind Chris's right elbow, as well as a overhand grip on Chris's right wrist here. So what he's going to do is he's going to use this 2-on-1 grip to get closer to Chris. So he's basically using that arm drag to bring Chris inside. And now also notice that Eddie's using some additional friction here by placing Chris's right arm across his midline or his belly here. So he's got an overhand grip on his right wrist, and he's pushing, I would imagine he's pushing Chris's arm into his belly to make it a little bit more difficult for Chris to pull out his right arm, especially in no gi, or if you're sweaty, that sort of thing. You want to use as much friction as you possibly can. So he's going to use this 2-on grip to bring his hips underneath him and start to elevate his opponent. So let's take a look at that real quick. So his hips are here, and he's using this leverage point here with the grip around his elbow and wrist here, and he's going to shoot his hips inside. Okay, so now once he has his hips as close to his opponent, as close to Chris as he possibly can, he's going to release the grip on the wrist and immediately switch it for the underhook across or underneath the armpit of Chris on the left-hand side here. His left hand is also going to release and start to also grab his upper body as well. So as you can see here, Eddie has the underhook on Chris's left, underneath his left armpit, and he's got an overhook on Chris's right hand side, but also grabbing the upper body here. And what Eddie's trying to do here is he's trying to minimize this distance between Chris and Eddie here. He wants to bring his upper body as close to Chris as he possibly can. So he's using that strong grip to get really close to Chris, and he's going to use that the fact that they're now attached here to drag Chris on top of him, because if you notice, Chris is really he's weary at this point now, and he's trying to back up himself. So Chris has got a post on the mat, and as we move forward here, you can see that Chris is actually trying to back up himself. But since Eddie has this strong grip around his upper body on both sides, Chris is not able to escape here. So now Eddie's going to fall back to the mat and start dragging Chris on top of him. And notice how Chris is trying to prevent that with a strong post over here. But at this point now, Eddie's in the butterfly position. He's got both hooks and in between Chris's legs here, and he's going to use both of them to elevate Chris. So let's take a look at that. All right. So one of the details that I don't think I covered in the last video is the height, or maybe I did, but probably didn't stress it enough. The height between the mat and his opponent's hips are very important. Notice how he's got his right leg almost it's even farther than 90 degrees, right? This strong hook here, and because he's taking his opponent slightly to the left, his strong hook is his right leg. What I've noticed when I'm training this particular entry, if I'm lazy, my leg may end up looking sort of like this, where it's sort of bent, because it's really easy to keep your leg bent and just kind of bring them over to the left side a little bit, but not elevate your opponent. And it makes it very difficult to finish this entry. So I just wanted to stress that it's very important when trying to hit this move to really lift your opponent. Get this leg conditioned to elevate your opponent as much as you possibly can. It's going to make it much easier for this left leg here to get behind your opponent's leg to get into the saddle position here. So again, as he elevates his opponent, he's making a lot of distance here. He's going to disengage his left hook here and bring it to the mat. And what he's trying to do is he's trying to get this left thigh behind Chris's left thigh. So let's go ahead and move forward. Now, the second detail that I don't think I covered as much in the previous video is I talked about elevating your hips off the mat to get behind your opponent's left leg here. So you notice how Chris is in the air here. Typically speaking, Eddie's going to want to shoot this bottom leg here and put it behind Chris's leg, right? And he's going to have to elevate his hips to do that. Well, in fact, when you watch this video in its entirety, you're going to see that he doesn't actually need the height, but typically speaking, you want to lift your hips up as high as you can to get behind your opponent's left leg. And what I've noticed is he's using the left or the bottom leg's toes off the mat to elevate his hips. So he's using that hook there to elevate his hips. So one more time, he's got his hips on the mat, and he's using this post off the floor with his left toes, and he's using that to lift his hips off the mat, right? And he's going to continue to use those those toes to keep his hips elevated. Now notice Chris is already on the mat here, so he doesn't need to go as high. He just needs to shoot behind his leg here. So Eddie can just basically drop his hips and get behind his legs. But if you take a look at the other video that I've made, you'll notice that Eddie keeps his hips elevated in a lot of his matches because his opponent is elevated, right? But in this particular case, Chris is already on the mat, and so he just shoots his bottom leg to capture that triangle. All right, so just back up here a little bit, one more time. He's got his opponent elevated in the sky here, right? And he's going to use the toes on this hook here to elevate his hips off the mat. If Chris was still in the air, he would keep those his hips elevated and shoot his bottom leg up. But in this case, Chris is on the mat, so he just shoots it down. And what he's looking to do is he's looking to capture the triangle here. So this right leg here will go, his hook will go behind his bottom leg here and capture the triangle, right? All right, so now he's basically in the saddle position, and all he really has to do is to take Chris and drop him on this side where he's got no base. So he's going to use this right arm here to keep the distance between Chris and Eddie. He wants to keep him away as he pushes him over, right? So he pushes him over, and now he's in the saddle position. Now I'm not going to spend any time here to go over how he finishes. We'll take a look at how he finishes his opponents a bit later, but I think the key details here are how to get into the saddle position. This is the toughest part, I believe, when trying to fight high-level opponents is getting your opponent into that saddle position. And it all starts here with this really unique entry from the butterfly guard, dragging his opponent and then switching right away to capturing the upper body, right? That's, I think, one of the keys that I was missing is releasing that 2-on-1 grip, going for the upper body with the underhook as well as the overhook on the other side. The second thing is elevating my opponent as much as I can to bring my bottom leg behind my opponent's left leg, and finally using that hook with the toes on the mat with the bottom leg to elevate the hips to get behind the opponent. All right, so once you're in this saddle position, if you train it, you'll see that it's relatively easy to capture the far leg. You can see here that all of his matches, he's really hunting for this far leg of the opponent, not the inside leg, at least not initially, because once he has the far side leg sort of wrapped up in this ankle lock hold here, it's very easy to maintain the position. Eddie right now can pretty much relax as long as he's got his his legs in between his opponent's legs. He's got a strong grip around the leg, and you can see with this match he actually takes his time and just decides when he's ready and when he's going to finish Chris. Alright guys, hope you liked the video.